There has been a war going on in my house this week. There is one Xbox, one Starfield available to play on Game Pass as of the making of this video, and one problem. My partner and I can't decide whose turn it is to play. This review will be story spoiler free, and we'll be taking a look at the game on Xbox Series S. I want to draw a bit more focus to that with this video in particular. Series S is the weakest platform you can play the game on, but it's the platform we review all Game Pass games on. Starfield runs great on Series S, but a few things we mention in the specs section later in this video won't be as big of a deal if you're playing on Xbox Series X or your Master Race PC. We also review a new game every single week, so if you enjoy the video, do consider subscribing. With all that out of the way, we're venturing into the Starfield and letting you know if it's worth your time.
This is where we belong.
Starfield is a paradox of a game, because on a technical level, this is the best Bethesda game yet. However, in reality, the Infinite Universe is oddly claustrophobic. To explain what I mean by this, we need to venture back to Skyrim. This game is the ultimate freedom. You can walk from Riverwood to the Gates of Solitude without a single loading screen, get into untold adventures on the way, and before you know it, 8 hours have passed. Each session feels like a continuous adventure. Starfield promises a massive universe, over 1,000 planets, and yet it feels so much smaller than Skyrim ever did. The problem here is that getting around in Starfield is just so tedious. Once you're on a planet, the Skyrim magic is there. I landed on this one moon, found an abandoned oil rig looking thing full of dead bodies, discovered the dead bodies were caused by spooky space spiders, and then ran for my life. It was excellent. I was fully immersed in Bethesda's world, and space felt dangerous and scary. A few hours later, on a different planet, I saw a ship land, snuck past the pirates who left, killed the remaining crew, took the ship for myself, ran into a stranded courier, agreed to deliver their package, attempted to land on Mars, got busted by the police for carrying contraband that was stolen by the now dead pirates, then got recruited by an undercover organisation before leaving and finally delivering my package. Both of these are the Bethesda adventures I'm here for, but there is a problem with both of them. Once I'd finished exploring the spooky oil rig, I was locked on the planet until I interacted with the fairly clunky travelling system. You cannot freely travel between planets in a system, you have to fast travel. That second example with the space pirate ship was broken up by half a dozen loading screens. There's no continuity because you have to pull up a menu anytime you want to go somewhere new. I start with this because the core of Bethesda games is the world, and we've regressed with Starfield. The universe here is so much bigger than anything Bethesda has put out before, but it feels so incredibly segmented and limited. When everything comes together, Starfield is honestly excellent. There's so much to do: explore, join factions, uncover the mysteries of the universe, build your dream ship, build your dream home. The amount of things Bethesda have fit into this game is insane. I started this review by saying that my partner and I have been arguing over who gets to play Starfield, and I mean it. As disjointed as this experience is, we can't get it out of our heads. There's always something more we want to see or do, and pulling away to stop playing is almost impossible. It's so weird to quantify. I think this game is a regression from Skyrim. Sure, there's more stuff, but it doesn't all fit together as well. But I'm eager to play more from the second I put the controller down to go to bed. Bethesda have captured the magic again, even if I can see every scrap of duct tape holding the magic together. Starfield is the ultimate game of butts. Shooting feels great, but the majority of enemies feel a bit spongy and there are far too many ammo types to manage. Exploration on a ground level is great, but moving from planet to planet is a clunky chore. Space fights look and feel cool, but actually controlling your ship is finicky. The game gives you so many places to go, but the opening is oddly restrictive. And building your own ship is an amazing feature, but how do I even do this with a controller before I die of old age? There are a few outright flaws to go with all those butts. Docking with space stations and other ships feels awful because you need to aim for center mass rather than the docking thing I can see and am aiming for. Afflictions are never fun, and if you don't have the correct medicine on you, there's a few loading screens before you can get cured. There's also no surface map. I can see why this was done. Bethesda wants to keep you invested in each area, but it makes actually finding the shop you want a nightmare. Having to quantify the gameplay experience of Starfield into a number is actually pretty hard. There's so much to love here, but it feels like Bethesda got a bit carried away with making the ultimate Bethesda game and forgot that all of the pieces need to connect together to really spark the magic. Despite all this though, I've had a great time with Starfield. The ground level gameplay is fun, and I'm eager to see what else the universe holds, even if I have plenty of issues with how the experience is stitched together. In the end, Starfield is getting a solid 4 out of 5 for gameplay. The universe really is beautiful, but once again, Starfield is hindered by its massive scope. I do want to gush though, this is easily the best looking game Bethesda has put out. I cannot count the amount of times I just had to stop and take in the surroundings. There's not a planet here that doesn't look amazing. Even the less habitable ones look simply dazzling. It was always a treat to see where I would land next, and before you even get to ground level, you're greeted with a great view of the planet below. The beauty of space has been captured to a fault with a gorgeous retro-futuristic aesthetic. Obviously, not every planet is wholly unique. Some textures, especially on rocky and uninhabited worlds, look rougher and repeated, but it was never enough to pull me out of the experience. Aside from one time, I landed on Saturn's closest moon, and according to the map, was facing Saturn, but I couldn't see it. This feels like a misplaced skybox, and whilst not the biggest issue in the world, it left me a little disappointed. I wanted to see those rings up close, damn it. There are about 1 million items in the game, at least it feels that way, and every single one has a detailed 3D model. It's frankly insane. Enemy designs have a lot of room to be nice and creative. Even your standard space pirates have cool suit designs. And then you have these floaty spider monsters, which make me shiver, amongst an array of other spacey enemies. Weapon models are also nice and unique, but animations do suffer from the usual Bethesda clunk. Honestly, animation clunk is something that Bethesda still haven't managed to pull away from. Third-person character animations are rough, and it looks like everyone is using automated animation when you talk to them. This doesn't look terrible, but it still feels off. Thankfully, the OST is great. The main theme gets me in the mood for Starfield every single time I hear it, and the rest of the OST works to enhance the experience, be it exploration or combat. Sound design is also great, ship thrusters sound powerful, each weapon sounds awesome, and the world has a great ambience, be it a bustling city or a barren moon. UI design is nicely stylized and it works for the most part. I did find that seeing how much ammo I had for certain weapons blended in with all of the other information, and this meant more burrowing into the menus after pulling out an empty gun in a gunfight. This is a very standard Bethesda UI though. In-game, all of your stats are wonderfully clear, and menu navigation, whilst clunky, does make sense. I've sung a lot of praise for this art direction, despite a few issues, but there is one major issue that I'd like to round out this section of the review with, because it affects more than just the art direction. The way that conversations are presented in Starfield is downright awful. And what's worse, we already had a better system in Skyrim. There, when you go and speak to someone, you just seamlessly transition into conversation with them. In conversations with multiple people, you keep your point of view and can look around towards each person. In Starfield, when you go to talk to someone, you get a hard cut and then they are centralized in the frame. In conversations with multiple people, you're just hard cut from person to person, and it makes actually visualizing where people are in the conversation a nightmare. There is no flow and everyone is staring into your soul. I totally understand that this game probably has more lines of dialogue than there are stars in the sky, and you need an easy way to present all of that, but this ain't it. Overall, Bethesda have done a lot right with the art direction of Starfield, but the choices made to manage the sheer scope of the universe hurt the experience, especially in terms of dialogue. This game is gorgeous though, and there was a lot of care and detail to craft visuals and soundscapes that amplify the universe. I will be doing a disservice to not give the art direction a 4 out of 5. Starfield's narrative manages to sidestep the usual Bethesda narrative issue. These dragons are a pretty big issue. Why have I spent the last 20 hours messing about picking flowers? My kidnapped son can hang on a little while longer whilst I build a town. The story here is a little more conductive to you exploring the galaxy. Unfortunately, it just wasn't really gripping me. This is going to sound silly, but I think it tries a little too hard to get you invested. The beginning of the game feels very intent in railroading you. I wanted to go and explore off the bat like I could in Skyrim, but no, my companion is locked with me until I find the next MacGuffin. The general writing is also fairly weak. Stuff like menu descriptions and text within the world is handled very well, but characters feel like walking exposition boxes. The presentation of their speech also doesn't help with keeping me engaged in what is actually being said. I couldn't differentiate a single conversation in Starfield if I was held at gunpoint. Fortunately, that magical Bethesda emergent narrative is present, and when you're not being interrupted by half a dozen loading screens, it's better than ever. Once I broke away from the main plot and started exploring on my own, I really fell in love with Starfield's universe. It's here where Bethesda's world building, which is fantastic as always, really shines. I was always happy to come across a surprise settlement, or be threatened by the Navy in deep space, or find some remnants of the Earth we know. Here's what you need to know. The main plot of Starfield is average at best, and unfortunately presented horribly. But as with all Bethesda games, you're going to have so many opportunities for emergent narratives to unfold, and that's what will make the experience special. Mixing it all together, Starfield is coming out with an average 3 out of 5 for narrative. Starfield is an insane content offering, but the settings, despite being plentiful, are missing some key features. And as with all Bethesda games, there are bugs. For what it's worth though, this is easily the most stable game Bethesda has ever put out. Content-wise, you're getting over 1,000 planets to explore, around 10% of which are habitable. The game is chock full of places to go, people to meet, factions to join, bases and ships to build, and pirates to kill. As with all Bethesda games, you have unlimited save slots. Bugs-wise, I got off fairly easy. My biggest issues were frame drops. These were extremely common, but never destroyed the experience. My game did crash when taking off, but only once. I also had a game freeze, but that figured itself out and the game ran as normal. We did run into some minor bugs. My partner had permanent invisibility after taking off some stealth armor, and I encountered some space pirates with wall hacks. This is a bit more than the usual open world jank, and the issues are common, but they're not world ending. Settings wise, we've got a lot of stuff here, but also a lot missing. You can choose between 5 difficulty settings. Save on rest, wait and travel can be enabled, and save on pause intervals adjusted. Film grain intensity can be adjusted, motion blur and depth of field have toggles. Crosshair, floating markers, damage numbers and item information in HUD can be toggled. HUD opacity can be adjusted with a slider. You can invert the Y-axis for both character and flight, but not the X-axis. Menu camera can be inverted on both axes. Flight, stick, swap, and roll dominant can be enabled. There are sliders for both axes of look and aim sensitivity. Controller look and cursor sensitivity have their own sliders. Controller vibration can be toggled, but you cannot adjust intensity. Outpost item rotation speed, flycam translation speed, flycam rotation speed, flycam distance speed, flycam starting pitch, and flycam starting distance can all be adjusted with sliders. You can rebind every single control in the game. I love this. There are audio sliders for master, effects, voice, music, player footsteps, and other footsteps. You can enable general and dialogue subtitles, but there are no further adjustment options. Fortunately, the base subtitles are nice and readable with a background. Toggle iron sights and large menu font can be enabled. There's a lot of good stuff here, but this array of settings feels limited, especially in terms of accessibility. There's no colorblind options, no audio mixing, visual options are very limited, and a few control options don't have their corresponding pair. Overall, Starfield is a massive content offering, but it is cracking at the seams a little. The experience can be tweaked a lot, but there's also not a lot of tweaks to make the game more accessible, which is especially weird coming from an Xbox studio. They usually nail this aspect. Starfield is getting a 3 out of 5 for specs. It's going to take you in the ballpark of 20 to 30 hours to complete the main quest of Starfield. This is on the longer end of games in general, but something as big as this manages to make that length work. Unfortunately, my time did feel wasted with the sheer amount of menu navigation that makes up those 20 to 30 hours. The thought of 100%ing this game actually scares me. The current estimate is around 200 hours. As of the writing of this script, the game has officially been out for just over 200 hours. And I don't know about you, but it already feels like Starfield came out ages ago. As with all Bethesda games, I recommend just going after the elements of the game that interest you, rather than trying to fit in absolutely everything. Thankfully, Starfield is insanely easy to fit into any amount of free time. You can save at any point, so if you have half an hour, a few hours on the weekend, or all the time in the world, you'll be able to squeeze in a bit of Starfield. Unfortunately, hard drive footprint is huge. Starfield wanted 100 gigabytes of my Xbox hard drive. Sure, you're getting a lot in this install, but if you have slow internet, a data cap, or limited hard drive space, this is going to be a big burden. Overall, Starfield is very easy to fit into your free time, but it is a long experience, and with how disjointed the game is, my time did feel a bit wasted. It's also asking for a lot of hard drive space, and is getting an average 3 out of 5 on our commitment scale when everything is said and done.
They say, the wonder is, not that the field of stars is so vast, but that we have measured it. You're part of Constellation now.
Now, before I get obliterated from the internet for not giving Starfield a perfect score, let me say that it is worth your time. The Bethesda magic is back, but as always, there are a lot of issues that detract from the experience. I really do believe Bethesda got way too ambitious here and spread themselves a little bit too thin. But at the end of the day, what they've made here is extraordinary, and as much as I can air my issues with the experience, I cannot wait to jump back in and see what else is out there.
That's why we're here.
Main engines go. Ignition.
To discover what's out there.
Good luck, Constellation.